The Glass-Steagall Act separated commercial and investment banking because combining them was considered risky and a possible cause of the Great Depression. It encouraged banks to use their funds for lending instead of investing in the equity market in order to prevent a second stock market crash. It was signed into law on June 16, 1933, under President Franklin D. Roosevelt as a part of his New Deal. This forced banks to choose whether they wanted to participate in commercial or investment banking activities because it was prohibited to do both. This act was named after Carter Glass, who was a former Treasury Secretary, and Henry Steagall, who was a former chair of the House Banking and Currency Committee. Next slide. This act affected major bankers like J.P. Morgan because they were forced to cut their services and their source of income, as banks were limited to earning 10% of their income from investments. It also pushed to prevent the bank's use of deposits for speculation in order to prevent failed underwriting or a high debt-to-income ratio. An extension to this act was signed into law in 1956, known as the Bank Holding Company Act. This extension helped define bank holding companies, control their expansion, and required divestment of their non-banking interests. Bank holding companies had surfaced to escape the restriction of banks having multiple offices or bank branching in the 1950s, but later in 1956, Congress gave the Federal Reserve more oversight. Next slide. There were a lot of critics of the Glass-Steagall Act as people argued that banks that offer diverse activities reduce risk to the consumers and that this could prevent economic growth as well as the market's ability to change. This act was then repealed in 1999 when the Graham-Leach-Bliley Act eliminated the restrictions of investment in commercial banking from the Glass-Steagall Act. After this act was repealed, people believed risky activities followed the repeal and led to the rise of subprime vending, which then led to the financial crisis in 2008.